The biggest lie I ever believed was that I had time. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 90 years old, and it took me nearly an entire lifetime to understand that the thing I kept postponing was the only thing that ever truly mattered. When you're young, time feels like a wide-open field. You don't see the fences. You don't hear the clock. You wake up thinking there will always be another morning to fix what you broke, to say what you swallowed, to become who you keep promising you'll be someday. I was born in 1935, in a small town where everybody knew your father before they knew you. My father worked at the mill, his hands rough and cracked from lumber and cold winters. He didn't say much, but when he did, it carried weight. Work hard, he used to tell me. That's how you build a life. And I believed him. I believed him so completely that I built my whole world around those 3 words. By the time I was 25, I had a steady job at an insurance firm in the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough. And I wore a pressed shirt and a tie every day. That mattered to me. I married a woman named Eleanor when I was 27. She had soft brown hair and a laugh that could fill a room without trying. On our wedding day, I remember thinking, I'll give her a good life. I'll make sure she never has to worry. That was the beginning of the lie. I told myself I was working late because I loved her. I told myself I missed dinners because I was building security. I told myself that once I got the promotion, once we paid off the house, once the savings account reached a certain number, then I would slow down. Then I would be present. Then I would sit on the porch with her in the evenings and listen to the crickets without checking my watch. But there was always another step, another goal, another reason to stay late. When our first son, Michael, was born, I held him in the hospital room and felt something shift inside me. He was so small that his entire hand wrapped around just one of my fingers. I remember thinking how fragile he seemed, how dependent, and I made another promise to myself. I will give him every opportunity I never had. I will make sure he's safe. Safety became my obsession. Not joy, not connection. Safety. I worked weekends. I took extra clients. I said yes to every opportunity that promised a raise or a bonus. At night, I would come home after the boys were asleep and stand in their doorway for a moment, watching their chests rise and fall in the dark. I told myself this was enough. I told myself that love didn't need to be loud or constant, it just needed to provide. Eleanor never complained in the early years. She would leave a plate in the oven for me, wrapped in foil. Sometimes I'd find a note beside it, "We missed you tonight." Just that. No accusation, no anger, just a simple sentence that I would fold up and tuck into my wallet like a receipt. I thought I was doing the right thing. That's how lies work. They don't announce themselves as lies. They disguise themselves as responsibility, as ambition, as sacrifice. When Michael turned 10, he had a school play. He was a tree of all things, a tree with 2 lines. He practiced those 2 lines for weeks in the living room, while I sat at the dining table with paperwork spread out in front of me. "Dad, listen," he'd say, and I'd nod without looking up. "I'm listening, buddy." But I wasn't. Not really. The night of the play, a client called. It was an important account, one that could mean a significant promotion. I told Eleanor to go ahead to the school. "I'll be there as soon as I can," I said. I truly believed I would. I didn't make it. By the time I walked into the auditorium, the chairs were half empty. The stage lights were dim. Michael was standing near the curtain with the other children, still wearing a cardboard costume painted brown and green. He looked so small up there. He spotted me in the back and gave a little wave, but it wasn't the excited wave of a child who's proud. It was the polite wave of someone who has already adjusted their expectations. I told myself it was just one play. There would be others. I kept telling myself that for years. Just one play, just one recital, just one game. And then the years stacked up like that, one missed moment on top of another, until I realized that the moments don't stack. They vanish. They vanish while you're busy making a life you think matters more than the people in it. By the time Michael was 16, he had started spending more time at friends' houses, more time at football practice, more time just away. I would come home at night and see the empty driveway and feel that old familiar tug of guilt, which I would quickly bury under a glass of scotch or a pile of unopened mail. I told myself he understood. I told myself he was happy. I told myself he wasn't waiting for me to notice. But the truth was, he was waiting, and I wasn't there. Eleanor tried to reach me in the quiet ways she always had. Small gestures, a note in my briefcase, a hand on my shoulder while I read the newspaper. Sometimes she'd ask if I wanted to take a walk after dinner. "Just a short one," she'd say, and I'd nod and smile, thinking about the numbers in my bank account, the client files stacked on my desk, the promotion I was chasing. I didn't see that she was not asking for my time as a favor. She was asking for my presence as a lifeline. It wasn't until I turned 70 that the weight of the lie fully hit me. Michael had moved to another state for work, and Eleanor and I had grown accustomed to our quiet house. One evening, I found myself going through old photo albums, the kind with the yellowing pages and the plastic sleeves that crack when you touch them too hard. I saw the tree costume, the school play, Michael's first bicycle, his graduation. And for the first time, I didn't just see the photos. I saw the spaces where I should have been, the spaces where I wasn't. I remembered the sound of his tiny hands gripping mine, the warmth of his little body on my chest when he was a baby, the way he used to run to me with that unguarded trust that I had assumed would always be there. And I realized I had spent most of my life believing that being responsible meant being distant, that providing meant sacrificing connection. I had confused busyness with love. I had mistaken absence for protection. I started trying to undo it, though of course it was too late for so many of the small moments. I called Michael more often, but even calls cannot replace years of dinners missed, stories unheard, laughter lost. Eleanor and I began taking walks again, slowly, carefully, learning to inhabit the silence together without distractions. And in those walks, I learned that presence is not measured in grand gestures or financial security. It is measured in the simple act of being there, of noticing, of listening, of showing up even when it is inconvenient. I wish someone had told me when I was young that the biggest lie I would ever believe was that I had time. I wish I had understood that there is no later for the things that matter most, that love isn't a reward for success, that moments with the people you care about are the only currency that ever truly counts. Now, at 90, I try to tell people quietly, not with lectures or grand speeches, but with the way I choose to spend my days. I make sure the grandkids see me. I make sure I remember their birthdays, not just with gifts, but with phone calls and letters, with the sound of my voice recounting the stories that Eleanor and I carried for decades. I've learned that it's never too late to show up, even if the years of absence cannot be erased. The lie has lost its power over me now, but the truth carries a weight I feel every morning when I wake up. Time is not an endless field. It is a river that moves whether you notice it or not. And the people you love are not waiting for your success or your security. They are waiting for you. Waiting for the small gestures, the presence, the listening, the shared silence. That is what lasts. That is what matters. I've thought about that river a lot in the last few years. The way it slips past you while you're busy calculating the best way to cross it, or trying to dam it up with your work, your plans, your ambitions. And what I've realized is that no ledger of success, no accumulation of wealth or recognition, can replace the water that runs past your life when you aren't paying attention. I spent decades building a life I thought was responsible, and I missed the only things that were truly alive. Eleanor and I talk more now, not because we have to, but because we want to. We reminisce about old mistakes, the kind that used to sting, the kind I wish I could have corrected sooner. And in those conversations, I see her patience, her quiet endurance, her unspoken understanding of what I didn't yet know, that life is not measured in hours worked or money saved, but in the tenderness we offer and accept. I try to explain this to Michael, though it's hard to put into words without the weight of experience. I tell him, when I can, that there is no substitute for being present. That the play, the first bike ride, the graduation, the quiet evenings when the house smelled of dinner and wood smoke, all of that is the real world, and it passes faster than you can believe. I see his eyes sometimes, and I think he understands. But even understanding doesn't repair absence. It can't undo the years I spent chasing illusions. I've watched friends grow old, too. Some of them still cling to the idea that time will be theirs if they just keep working, keep striving, keep planning. I see it in their eyes. The same look I once had, a mix of hope and denial. A belief that tomorrow will forgive the mistakes of today. But tomorrow doesn't forgive. It simply arrives, and we arrive with it, carrying the consequences of every choice, every neglect, every deferred act of love. One morning not long ago, I found myself on the porch, watching the sun rise. The sky was a pale gold, and the air had that sharp, clean bite that only early February mornings carry. I thought about my life, about the decades I spent under the spell of that lie, and I thought about the moments I have now. The laughter of my grandchildren in the yard, Eleanor humming to herself in the kitchen, the quiet satisfaction of knowing I can still reach out, still touch their lives in a way that matters. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because I had been perfect, not because I had finally done everything right, but because I finally understood the truth. The only thing worth chasing is presence, and it's never too late to start. I have small regrets, of course. Everyone does. There are letters I never wrote, apologies I never offered, embraces I postponed. But I have learned that even the smallest gestures can be redemptive if they are genuine and intentional. Sitting down to read a story to my granddaughter, listening to Michael recount a workday without glancing at the clock, holding Eleanor's hand while the television hums softly in the background, these are the moments that matter. They are the moments that survive us. The lie I believed, that I had time, shaped me more than I realized. It kept me busy. It kept me blind. It kept me from the people I loved the most. And yet, I can't say I wasted everything, because learning the truth has been its own kind of gift. I can still show up. I can still be present. I can still bear witness to the lives I helped create, even if I didn't always participate in them, as I should have. When I look back, I realize the irony of it all. The years I thought I was building security for my family were really the years I was building distance. I told myself that working late and saying no to invitations, to birthdays, to simple dinners was an act of responsibility. But responsibility, I have learned, is not only about providing, it's also about showing up. It's about the quiet, ordinary acts that form the fabric of a life together. There was a time, about 5 years ago, when I found Michael sitting in the kitchen late at night. He was in his 20s then, just like I was when I first promised myself I'd always give him opportunities. He looked tired, worried, but also a little lonely. He had a stack of papers beside him, a cup of coffee half cold. I didn't interrupt. I didn't make a speech. I simply poured myself a cup and sat down. And in that small, silent moment, I realized how powerful simply being there could be. He didn't say much, but later, I saw a change. A small one, maybe, but real. Presence leaves traces. Eleanor and I often talk about our younger years, about the life we imagined and the life we lived. She doesn't blame me. I think she understands in a way I never did. Love, she has shown me, is not a ledger. It doesn't balance out. It doesn't demand payment. It only asks for attention, for listening, for the willingness to share your time, even when it's inconvenient. I've learned to notice things now that I used to overlook. The way sunlight filters through the kitchen window in the morning. The way Michael's voice changes when he's telling a story he's proud of. The way Eleanor hums softly when she's doing the dishes. These are the moments that matter. The moments that endure when photographs fade and houses crumble and careers end. These are the moments that teach you what life is, not what you thought it should be. Sometimes I think about all the young people out there, running after promotions, grades, accolades, thinking they have endless time to love, to listen, to simply exist in the lives of the people who matter most. I want to tell them what I know now. I want to shout it from rooftops. Stop postponing presence. Stop believing you have tomorrow to say the things that matter today. The lie I believed, that time is abundant, is the one that steals the most from us. And it's a lie that feels so true until you realize, at 90, that you've been chasing shadows while life was slipping through your fingers. I don't dwell on regrets constantly, but I carry them quietly, as reminders, not as punishment, but as lessons. Every missed game, every dinner I skipped, every bedtime story I didn't hear, those moments taught me something vital. Life is not what you accumulate, it is what you give. And it is in the giving of your presence that you leave a mark that lasts beyond the years. There's a particular evening I remember vividly, even though it was over a decade ago. Michael had just returned from college for the holidays, and I was still the same man I had always been. Distracted, busy, restless. I had promised to take him out for dinner, just the two of us, and for once I was determined to be fully present. We drove in silence for a while, the hum of the car filling the gaps. And then he started talking, not about school, not about work, but about the small, ordinary things he noticed, the things he loved, the little victories he carried in his chest. And I listened, truly listened, not glancing at my watch, not thinking about the next task, not rehearsing advice I thought he needed. I just listened. And in that moment, I realized how many years had passed without this simple act, how many evenings I had traded for the promise of a better future. There's a tenderness in listening, a humility, a recognition that the person before you is already complete, already valuable, already deserving of your attention. That night, Michael and I spoke for hours, and when we returned home, I felt a quiet shift inside me. It was subtle, but it was real. Eleanor noticed it too. She said little, but she looked at me with that quiet, knowing smile, the one that carried decades of patience and understanding. She had been present all along, even when I was not. And I think it was in her presence, in the constancy of her companionship, that I finally understood what I had been missing, that love, the real kind, is patient, persistent, and demanding only that you show up. Since then, I've made it a point to be present in every way I can. Birthdays, anniversaries, random Tuesday afternoons. I take walks with Eleanor without rushing. I make the time to sit with Michael when he visits, and I call him just to hear his voice on ordinary days. I write letters to my grandchildren, long ones, that tell them the stories I wish I had told Michael when he was their age. And in these acts, small as they may seem, I feel life in a way I never did when I was chasing ambition at the expense of connection. I've realized that the lie I believed, this idea that I had endless time, is not just a lie for me. It's a lie most of us inherit from the world around us, from the emphasis on achievement over presence, from the culture of constant striving, from the stories we tell ourselves about what matters. We think that life is measured in milestones, in accomplishments, in accumulation. But it isn't. Life is measured in the spaces between those things, in the quiet moments, in the laughter shared over nothing, in the gentle reassurance that you are here and I see you. Sometimes, when I wake up in the night, I think about all the mornings I slept through, all the evenings I spent elsewhere, all the birthdays I missed. There's a sting, yes, a sharp awareness of lost opportunity. But there's also gratitude, because I have learned the truth before it was too late entirely. I have learned finally that the most important investment of all is time itself, not stored, not spent, not saved, but given. Given freely, fully, and without reservation to the people who matter most. I remember one winter afternoon, a few years back, when Eleanor and I were sitting by the fireplace. The wind was rattling the windows, and the house smelled of wood smoke and old paper. I picked up a photo album, one of those bulky leather-bound ones, and we began flipping through it together. Pictures of our younger selves, of Michael as a baby, of family gatherings I had mostly missed. And as we turned each page, I saw the consequences of the lie I had lived under, a lifetime of moments that had passed while I convinced myself I was being responsible. Eleanor didn't scold me, didn't make me feel guilty. She just held my hand, and we shared the silence. And in that silence I understood something I hadn't before. Regret doesn't have to crush you. It can teach you, it can guide you. It can remind you that while you can't go back, you can choose differently going forward. That even at 90, there is still time to show up. There is still time to matter to someone you love. It's funny how the smallest gestures can carry so much weight. A phone call, a hug, a shared cup of coffee on a quiet morning. These are not trivial. These are the lifeblood of relationships. I've learned that attention is the currency of love, and it is the one thing you can never recover once it is spent elsewhere. All the promotions, all the hours worked, all the money saved cannot substitute for simply being there. And yet, I see young people in their 20s and 30s, who still believe in that lie. I have found a quiet peace in this awareness, not because I have erased the past, but because I have accepted it, and I have chosen differently for the years I have left. I spend more time in the garden now, talking to Eleanor as we prune roses, listening to her stories, remembering our own. I call Michael on ordinary afternoons, not with an agenda, but to hear him breathe, to share a laugh, to participate in his life as fully as I can, and when I am alone, I reflect, not in guilt, but in understanding. I remind myself that the truth I discovered, the truth about time, is the one gift I can carry forward and share.